Hi there. If you're listening to this message is specifically for you.
Thank you for listening to the CoBB. I'm Sharan and I co host this with Sudeep.
We've been at it for some time, and we really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for listening to us and making us reach thus far.
And we'd love to know a lot more about you and what you would like to hear from us.
And hence, please take just 2 minutes of your time and fill this form. The links are in the comments or in the show notes. It will help us recognize who you are and also get your expectations so that we can craft the podcast content to satisfy those expectations.
Welcome to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvan Raghavan.
Sharon, it's not too often that marketers end up talking about sales as one of the methods of building brands. Why don't we break that tradition today? Let's take sales as the core topic of today's marketing podcast. And sometime back, you had shared a story on LinkedIn
Right.
about one of your stints from Karur.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was all about sales and its impact and what could a sales manager do.
Hmm.
Why don't we pick up that incident and dive a little bit deeper and maybe understand what you wanted to say,
Hmm.
what potentially are the lessons for sales guys as well as marketers in this, and then also understand your point of view, why you did what you did.
No, that's actually a very good point. I think it's a case worth discussing, primarily because there are different nuances to the written word. And when we speak, there are different things people take away. So I think it's an important lesson that I learned there. And like you said, there are very rarely sales case studies because one environment in sales is never really replicable. So sales is more filled with stories than actually case studies, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So this was one such story. And this was, I think, being a traditional trades ASM is a very, very important stint for anybody looking to be in the business of brands because that gives you a sense of responsibility and controlled authority where you get to not just learn but also hone your leadership skills and understand the on ground realities of how business works. Because, say what we will, sales is the only revenue function in any business, right?
Hmm.
So,
True. So for our audience,
hmm,
many of our audience might not have read that case.
obviously, right?
Yeah, so why don't you just recount the case
Sure.
and start from where possibly you had started writing it on LinkedIn.
Hmm. So, this was back in 2010 when I was the ASM of Coimbatore. So, Coimbatore was my headquarters in Tamil Nadu, and there were five surrounding districts that also I was managing. And the farthest district from Coimbatore was Karur.
Mm-hmm.
Karur is an industrial town where there are a lot of businesses. And in classification today, it would rank as a tier 3 city. And in 2010, that was a 30 lakh business for Cadbury. And as an ASM, you visit all your markets on a regular basis. So once when I was visiting Karur and visiting the market there, a lot of retailers complained about Cadbury not giving any discounts.
Hmm.
And we had a significantly rich program that we were running for retailers all across, where retailers were getting discounts as part of their bills when they gave us visibility and other things in return. And when I asked retailers about that, they said, "We are giving you visibility, you're Cadbury. We're obviously giving you visibility, but we're not getting any discounts." And it didn't really make sense. So it went on for a few more stores. And then I realized none of the stores were getting discounts that they were supposed to get. Then I asked for their bills, and their bills also did not reflect the discounts. So I understood there's something missing between what's being passed on to the distributor and what's actually reaching the retailer. So I went to the distributor at the end of the day, and the distributor wasn't there. So I asked to check the bills at the distributor's place. So the distributor had two different systems, one to generate bills to send to the company to claim the discounts, and another system to just bill to the retailers without the discounts so that he could pocket the discounts. So this is technically malpractice.
Yeah.
And me being the young angry man mode that I was back 13 years ago, and wanting to take immediate action, I'm wanting to be straightforward and demonstrating, make an example of people who are not straightforward. I asked the distributor to quit. I told him
Immediately.
immediately without seeking anybody's approval. This was, in my eyes, at that point, a black and white case. I said, this fraud cannot continue in a territory that I'm operating in. I'm sacking you now. You quit, and I will not pass any of your claims. So, claims meaning the money that the distributor claims back from the company for the discounts he's passed to the retailers. Obviously, he's not passed on any discounts. So, I'm not going to pass any claims. I'm firing you. And I was so angry with him. It was almost a personal issue for me. I got offended. And after firing him on my way back to Coimbatore, I called up my boss, Mr. Unmesh Kambete. And he and I always had a good rapport. And I called up, tell him, expecting complete backing, saying this. It just didn't seem to me that anything could be wrong with what I did. But Unmesh wasn't necessarily happy, and he did not really commend me for my immediate action, which I was expecting. As a reportee, you expect your boss to commend any immediate action you've taken proactively. He wasn't commending me. Then he told me that I should have not been so hasty. I should have taken a measured approach to what I did. While it wasn't wrong, I should have made backup plans, and I should not have made such a hasty decision. That really annoyed me. I was almost as angry with Unmesh as I was with the distributor. It just didn't make sense.
Okay. Did you take up with him immediately? Did you ask him what's the matter?
No, I asked him. He said, "You just should not have done. Now that you've done it, you can't undo it. But you should not have taken such a hasty decision," is what he told me.
Okay.
And he didn't really explain further, and I obviously wasn't in a mood to listen any further. So that went on. And at the end of the month, we met up. He said, "Please sort out Karur as soon as possible." And yeah, there were issues when others raised saying Karur is without a distributor in the couple of months that followed. But Unmesh kind of backed me pretty openly there to say, no, the distributor was on the wrong. And Sharan was right in what he did, is what he basically told everybody. But in private, he was on me. He was like, you need to fix Karur today. And for all my good luck or my lack of foresight, that distributor I had fired was the nephew of the president of the Distributor Association in Karur. So what that
Nice.
did was, no, that guy, I don't think he did any open threat, nothing. He was pretty cool about it. He didn't say anything to me. In fact, I even met him in the market. He would greet me. But any distributor I went to meet would be very sweet. Will say, yes, Cadbury we want to take. And then in a matter of hours, they'll call up and say they don't want to take up the distribution. This happened with three or four people. And then it became a point blank statement to me. Even when met them the first time, they tell me, we can't take up distribution. It is belongs to so and so. You should ideally reinstate him. We don't want distribution. This became like a silent ban on Cadbury. I just couldn't appoint distributor for Cadbury, the market leader in a tier 3 town. And this was killing me. I didn't know what to do. So I said, so what if there's no distributor? So what if the city is against me? I will supply it anyway from my distributors in Coimbatore via wholesale market. No matter what I tried, the Karur wholesale did not go anywhere beyond 10, 12 lakh rupees in a 30 lakh market.
Hmm.
So it needed direct distribution, and I wasn't able to provide it. And this went on, and Coimbatore had good business. It was a good year. So overall numbers were getting taken care of. So I wasn't under immediate pressure to correct Karur, under hope that the town would come around saying this is not happening. And it became almost an ego issue for me because I believed I was in the right. So this went on for a few months, almost a year. There came a time when I was going to move out of the role.
Hmm.
That's when Unmesh sat me down and said, "When are you going to resolve Karur?" And I was like, "This is all I can do. I'm not getting any distributors." He said, "Look at the impact you've had. Why don't you do the calculation?" And all of the distributor had skimmed over, say, a few months, about 5, 6 months, totaled up only to about 2.5 lakhs.
Hmm.
I say only because the 20 lakh of loss that happened in the market from the time I confronted the distributor was for a year. So, but 2.5 crores, it's like trying to do the right thing. My damages to the company I was trying to serve was 100 times worse than the person who was cheating the company. That struck me in the gut. Not like I didn't know we were losing business, but I convinced myself that because I'm recovering the business in another market, I was fine.
Hmm.
But when you look at it in isolation, the business was suffering. The 2.5 crore loss, and
Hmm.
that's not small. And I then like, okay, I need to fix this. And Unmesh said, please fix it before you move on to the role. Next role, I don't want somebody else inheriting this problem from you. He said, it could also become your legacy that you left behind this problem in your territory. So solve it before you go. So that also is a bit of matter of pride. So I had to swallow my pride first, go back to the distributor association, agree to their terms, pass the distributor's claims, which I honestly feel that he did not deserve to get, but I had to pass those claims. And with their blessings, I was allowed to appoint another distributor. And this was one of the most memorable lessons in my sales stint.
I can see why it generated so much inquiry and advocacy on LinkedIn. Uh, Let me take the first shot. There was a need to change the distributor. This was thankfully agreed between you and your boss,
Right.
so that seems fine.
Hmm.
Maybe the changeover should have been planned better.
Absolutely.
That is also fine. Where I possibly see a problem is kind of comparing extent of loss in terms of cheating versus extent of loss in terms of revenue,
Right.
right? It is 100% yes, but it also kind of letting it go shows a tolerance of wrong practices in the market by a company.
Right.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that?
I don't think it's a tolerance of practice. So, in the sense that nobody said the distributor will cheat and let him cheat. That was
Hmm.
never the case.
Hmm.
The idea was that it should have been handled with a lot more tact.
Hmm.
Instead of confronting him immediately and
Hmm.
sacking him on the spot,
Hmm.
I could have told him, please don't do this
Hmm.
and continue business. And at best, could have delayed his claims until he corrected his way of working the market.
Hmm.
The other option is I could have looked for another distributor to say
Hmm.
this town could have been serviced by two distributors. And therefore, when there are two balancing each other out, the lesser chance of one doing this kind of skimming.
Hmm.
So these are things I could have explored. But yeah, the full angry young man mode was what took center stage.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.
So tell me, for a young marketer or a young sales manager, what would you possibly ask them to take out from this? From a sales manager point of view, just heard you say that this incident could have been handled better.
Hmm.
Yeah, which seems fine, seems logical, and is the right thing to do. What else?
So before that, I tell them what they can take away from this. I'll tell them what they shouldn't take away from this.
Okay, yes, please go
It's
ahead.
not about ethics and morally right going down the drain and morals losing out to money. It's not a case of that at all.
Hmm.
Like, nobody forced me to do what I did.
Hmm.
Yes, there was pressure, but that pressure was something that was born out of my actions.
Hmm.
My boss ensured that I had no pressure from the company side. He basically waited a year and showed me the mirror. That's all he did.
Hmm.
And the lesson in that I took away was that you could be right. You don't have to be hasty in your actions to make things right.
Hmm.
You need to think through the repercussions, because, see, at the end of the day, a right deed has cost the company 100 times more than a wrong deed.
Hmm.
And this, as much as in life, we can't, it's like cutting away your arm because a dog bit the arm, right? You're not going
Hmm.
to do that.
Hmm.
You've got to take corrective action with a view on the long term always.
Hmm.
And that is what I took away from this as a lesson.
Hmm. Interesting.
And it is not a punishment for imandari. I love this line from the movie Newton.
Huh.
Sanjay Mishra's character says, tells to the Rajkumar character, says, "Your problem is not your imandari; it is your imandari ka gamand."
Hmm.
That is a line I love, and that line reminded me of this incident.
Incident. Okay, interesting. In fact, Sharon, I think there have been multiple instances of this kind within Cadbury.
Right,
I was in North, so I remember that. In our times, Cadbury used to have two businesses: the
right,
mass marketing business and the base business.
right. Mass being the 5 rupees and lower.
Huh. In fact, not even 5 rupees, lower than 5 rupees.
Right.
Solure candies, etc.
Hmm.
Small gems, small perks, small 5 star halls. And then base business was all 5 rupee chocolates and above. So largely chocolates, bites, and Bonvita, right?
Right.
So I remember for the longest period of time, base business did not have a distributor in Aligarh,
Hmm.
right? I had a distributor from a mass
Hmm.
market point of view, and then base business had an ex distributor who was an advocate and fairly influential one, and he made sure that Cadbury did not get a distributor in Aligarh for years together,
Hmm.
and Aligarh remained vacant for I think more than 4 5 years,
Wow.
at least 3 years I know when
Hmm.
I was around, and Aligarh was being supplied by some of the towns that were nearby. I think there was somebody in Kasganj who used to buy from us and supply there. So it was getting supplied from here, there, everywhere.
Hmm.
But I don't know the exact incident. But I know that Aligarh was empty for a fair point in
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Somehow, as an ASM, it used to give me great deal of pride to know that my company has kept a town vacant, but has not bowed down to the
Hmm.
arm twisting tactics of some local hooligan.
Right.
Yeah, and I had two incidents of dealing with distributors who had to be removed.
Hmm.
One was in Jammu, where the distributor wanted to get the distributor association involved.
Hmm.
And as per policy, if you remember, we were all told that to talk to the distributor, we have no business talking to
Association.
the association. So that's
Exactly.
what I told the distributor. What he did was he brought the association to my hotel and he came to the room. I told him you'll wait downstairs for in the breakfast place, and I went and sat with them.
Hmm.
So the distributor spoke the most, and association just did a little bit. Uh, what I was pleasantly surprised with that the association was very pleasantly balanced.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So they were all saying that, sir, possibly you did wrong. Can you reconsider?
Hmm.
As soon as I put some of the facts on the table of why this guy was removed and what are the malpractices that were caught, the association took a step back.
Wow.
Yeah, they knew that they can't justify wrong practices. So
Hmm.
then they let this guy negotiate, etc., etc. And at one point in time, he made a statement that I will make sure that you don't get a distributor in Jammu.
Hmm.
Now, good thing is my ASM, I was an RSM at that point in time. My ASM had already appointed a distributor. So that's the good thing. But what I told him was that Jammu is a crore a month for me,
Hmm.
12 crore in the entire year. Of my entire region of about 350, 400 crores, it's about
Hmm.
3%.
Right.
I don't have a problem. I will deliver 3% growth from somewhere else. And I gave him example that Aligarh has been vacant for 3 years now, and the company doesn't care. I kind of got a lot of confidence from that particular incident,
Aligarh incident.
Aligarh
Incident.
incident, and which is similar to possibly what you would have done at Karur. And
Hmm.
hence, I just wanted to narrate this so that all the budding ASMs and the marketing managers see it in the right perspective.
Right.
And maybe when I'm looking at both incidents side by side, maybe what I will say is that in the first place, once you have identified that a distributor is doing the wrong things, like Sharan you did, it must be decided that this distributor needs to go.
Right.
There is no doubt about that. However, the removal needn't happen immediately on that day,
Exactly.
because you have to protect business interests. So start planning for a changeover immediately and
Hmm.
make it as fast as possible. And don't take any foolhardy decisions such that you have to eat your words or renege on your actions later.
Exactly.
Right? I
Very,
think,
very true.
but in case the person creates massive problems and you're not able to do that, then don't worry. All the right companies will bat you to the hilt, like
Yep.
your boss did in front of everybody. He made sure that uh, he was batting behind you.
Right.
So therefore, have that confidence that the companies that have their heart in the right place will always support you, but try not to take foolhardy decisions.
Exactly.
Interesting, very interesting. And in fact, so Sharon, from a marketing point of view,
Hmm.
uh, for the marketing managers there now, a sales manager is trying to manage their revenue,
Hmm.
trying to manage all the channel partners there. Yeah. So
Right.
therefore, from a marketer's point of view, what should they see in this incident as something which could be a lesson in reputation management or brand management?
I'd say as a reputation management, this is more on the, I'd say on the corporate side.
Hmm.
On the brand side, this is something that you've spoken about as what good marketers need to do is to understand that on the sales front, there are so many of these issues going on at the same time.
Hmm.
And the sales managers just need some support
Hmm.
and reaching out to them. So, like you needed growth from elsewhere to make up for Jammu. I needed growth from elsewhere to make up for Karur.
Hmm.
And if a marketing manager understands this and reaches out to people to say, how can I help you?
Hmm.
And the moment a marketing manager or brand manager reaches out with the offer of help, obviously it's their brand that's going to get sold.
Hmm.
The number's
Hmm.
already going to get made. Instead
Yeah.
of calling up the sales manager and saying, is my number done at the end of the month? If they've participated with them as a part of the team, then they can actually address the business issue as well as build significant rapport with their most immediate counterparts.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. I also think that too often these kind of issues are not merely a result of broken moral compass of the distributor.
Right.
Too often the distributors adopt these kind of practices to make up for some other deficiency.
Mm,
Yeah. So for example, if the town has a perennial uh, issue with rates, distribute distributor being troubled by wholesalers or something else,
right.
he knows that to continue to sell a certain amount, he or she would need to spend significantly more than a normal distributor.
Right.
And hence, to make up the margins, they try to go the wrong way because nobody showed them the right way.
Right.
So in fact, in times like these, the ASM would encounter some of these challenges, and the sales manager would also realize that some of these challenges might not be immediately solvable.
Hmm.
They take time.
Hmm.
Yeah. But to boost up sales in the short term, they can plan activations along with the marketing guys,
Hmm.
right? So therefore, whenever an opportunity like this arises, it's a crisis for the sales manager, but it's an opportunity for you,
Exactly.
right? So and now, the same thing that you were earlier saying. Yeah. So do you support that guy, provide them with some kind of a local opportunity that can make up for the lost margin and lost sales, and that's where your brand benefits, the sales manager benefits, and overall the town and its commerce benefits.
And this is something that's prevalent all over the country. Incidentally, both are examples. One is from Jammu and one is from Tamil Nadu.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Another one that I can think of, Sharon, from a brand point of view,
Hmm.
is that we must all consider that we are all but custodians of reputations of companies and brands that have been built painstakingly over a period of time.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it has taken a lot of trials and tribulations to reach wherever they have reached, and it would have taken people a lot of effort to correct the wrong practices, to make sure people work in the right manner, etc., etc. And hence we owe it to them to possibly give that much amount of deliberation and effort
Hmm.
behind any action which might lead to any kind of impact on the reputation,
Absolutely.
positive or negative.
Yep. We
So
are
I
but temporary custodians of an
correct,
ongoing legacy.
correct,
And we shouldn't, or we shouldn't look at things on a personal note
yeah,
or get offended and take action on that front, or react personally to it.
correct, correct. So like Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. So an ASM, and people will agree, is quite powerful in their own cluster or territory or state.
Absolutely.
They are
Especially when
the
they're away from the metros.
Yeah, they are
Definitely.
the master of that territory. So you are the company for them.
Hmm.
So therefore, that's how you should conduct yourself, and possibly, bearing all of this in mind, one would possibly make more judicious, more deliberate calls, and if needed, consult before pulling the trigger.
Absolutely. And just that, just because you're far away from the headquarters doesn't mean you're operating on your own.
Yeah,
You always have a team, you have a boss, an entire line of people who can step in to help you. No
correct,
harm reaching out.
correct. So excellent. So now, when this post was put up on LinkedIn, Sharon,
Hmm.
what was the dilemma that people had?
It became a right versus wrong conversation,
Huh,
and maybe my style of the written word wasn't exactly clear to them. They
huh.
said morals always lose out to money and all that. So
Oh, nice. I
it's
like this point. I love
thank
it
you.
when somebody puts Sharon in a moral and ethical dilemma and Sharon is on the wrong side.
I always live there. I live in the gray.
No,
As a,
actually, I empathize with whoever wrote this.
hmm,
If you view it purely from a black versus white point of view, you're right
hmm,
that one can take an immediate action, etc. But one must also recognize that you're not the law authority of that town. You're the
exactly.
business authority of that town,
Hmm,
and hence
perfectly put.
realize what
Yeah,
are you governing. You're not a law and order authority that you will immediately start punishing people. That's not your role.
right.
Yeah, what you do should be within the ambit of what your role is, and I rest my case there.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. Even if you're putting me on the spot.
Excellent. And any other confusions that people had around this?
Nah, they thought my boss didn't support me when the entire post was about my boss supporting me.
Okay. Okay, I'm sure Unmesh
Hmm.
wouldn't have taken that comment lightly, but I think he did the right thing by supporting you in front of everybody else
Hmm.
and counseling you in private, and making sure that you do the right thing before you leave the territory. I think all of those were the right things to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. I think this is a very very interesting incident, and it takes, honestly, Sharon, I must say that it takes a little bit of bravery and effort to come up with an incident where you did something and you possibly were made to realize that it is a little bit of a hasty action that you undertook, and to put it out in front of everybody and then dish out lessons from there. But I must commend you on doing that first on a public platform, that LinkedIn, and then after you saw a lot of activity around it, then choosing it to be a subject of the podcast. I'm sure this is going to be a useful case study for people to pick up, not just about how to manage ethical issues in the field when you're a sales manager, but also bearing in mind the written word and its difference from the spoken word, when you can explain the context and help people see what you're wanting to say, and therefore
Absolutely.
understanding the rule of written communication while you're putting something out there.
Oh yeah. And I mean, spoke about incidents where you make mistakes, right? So I think that's the only time you learn the most.
Yeah.
So that's exactly my whole intent was to pass on, or rather communicate the learning I had from the incident. And that's, I mean, I'm happy if that got done.
No, no, excellent. In fact, I must say that this has been one of, somebody said this, that why make all your own, why learn from only your mistakes, make original ones, but learn from some mistakes that others have made.
Oh yeah.
So this is an excellent opportunity to learn from something that you possibly went through. So thank you for sharing this, Sharon. I'm
Thank you,
sure our
Sudeep.
I'm sure our listeners will find this useful. And to our listeners, if you have made any of these mistakes that you want us to speak about and you want the rest of the listeners to learn from, please feel free to drop them in the comments under the LinkedIn post or Insta, wherever you come across this podcast episode, and we'll be very happy to pick up any interesting incident, chat up with you all about it, and who knows, you might we might invite you to the podcast to speak to us and hopefully help us learn from the incident.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I won't be the only one sharing my mistakes after that.
On that note, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sudeep.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBcast.net.